All right, everybody, this is Robert. I'm back again with part two of the Home of Origins interpretation. And if you've been watching my CBT, ABCs of CBT, you realize that there's an activating event or an antecedent. There's a belief structure, and there are consequences to that whole scenario. And what I have discovered is the merit assessments fall very nicely into the ABCs of CBT. So for those of you that are using CBT, I will be expanding upon this in the future and showing you how to use the assessments to discover exactly what's going on. As far as I'm concerned, the base of any psychological ills, at least a rather large contributing factor, is the home of origins, the imprint that was left upon the individual. And what's really interesting is you can have two people both raised in the same home just a year or so apart without any major catastrophic changes, and those two personalities turn out radically different. So it's not all imprint, but it is imprint to a very large degree, especially when there are major psychological things that have happened. So if you have not watched part one, you need to watch part one, because I go over the scoring of HOI independently. We understand here that this is elevated above this. Probably some active consequences, ABC, the consequences are probably happening here. There are personal behaviors that are probably happening. We know that the response here, down here, is just a feedback. It's just feedback from what the person answered. So they can't say, oh, I didn't answer it that way. I didn't answer any of that. Well, you've got a score of 50 because you did answer some of these. I'm simply feeding you back what they said. Not all of it, but these are all of the questions. The person who's getting a score this high, they answered a good chunk of these. By the way, these are real results that we're looking at. I have been given permission by the individual to use them for training purposes. The name, of course, has been changed. Back to the top again, we see that and this one almost scores on the scale. The hostile home environment. The home of origins, this is the antecedent. This is what came before. This is the imprint on the child from birth to adulthood. So this is what structures the personality to some degree or another. And what we need to do is go up here to the top and look at the personality structure now. And we see Jane's personality is narcissistic, not wildly out of control, but the construct is narcissistic. Optimal is a little bit ahead of it, and maladaptation is only 2 points away from happening, so it's very close. What's really interesting to me here, though, is this lopsided score with obsessive compulsive. And again, this is a 102. It's only 3 points away from actually scoring. So for all intents and purposes, this person is borderline OCD. This is a narcissistic base, a very moderate narcissistic base. And we'll go past all this. What I want to do, let's see, we're going to go back up here to home of origins first, because I want to tie this whole thing together. If we look at the factors that are above 33%, we see parental neglect, chronic debilitating issues, And the stuff that I've highlighted here is the substance abuse and the lack of empathy. Those are both in here. There's lack of empathy down here. Substance abuse disorders right here. So we see that parental neglect may indicate some of those issues. Hostile environment. It's going to create one of two things in the adult. One is a cowering individual who backs away from all conflict and is self-punishing. Or the active side of that would be rage, maybe severe rage, and maybe a personality issue that goes along with that rage, depending on what else happened. And adverse parenting. Down here we noticed either dependent, schizoid, or obsessive compulsive. You see these factors right from the person's own scoring. They can't say that they didn't say this stuff, they did. We go back up. Now realize this is the imprint. This is the base of the person's life, of what helps create the personality. When we go back up here and look, what do we have? We have the OCD. And we have narcissism, which all three bars are up here. Very strong narcissistic base. This is not psycho-narcissism because antisocial personality disorder is not indicated with it. This is a good, strong leader's base as long as they keep it under control. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that it's manageable. Let's go down and take a look at what happens though when it gets past the crisis, or it gets to the crisis stage. These are the maladaptive behaviors that go along with narcissism. Notice, we've already mentioned this. We looked at this in Home of Origins. The antecedent, the thing that comes before, the home that built this. Rage, we talked about that. In here somewhere is feelings of envy, lack of empathy. We already saw that in Home of Origins, that the Home of Origin might cause a lack of empathy. We go down here and look at the crisis behavioral patterns that will arise at different various levels of maladaptation. This person's not maladaptive at the present time, but they're very close to it. Instability, anger, potential rage. They got the whole package right here built into the personality. This is the B. This is the belief system. The antecedent is the home of origin. This is the belief system that forms the rest of life. Now, we go back over here. Again, just to rehearse this, we see this is somewhat elevated. It's not crazy elevated, but it's elevated, which means that some of the stuff that we've seen here as potential in B, the belief system and the personality, may be happening. Does our testing system bear that out? Anger. Right there. Abuser type anger. One of the clinical scales. And it's going to light up yellow. Anxiety was another issue. Didn't even remember that one. So anxiety is extremely elevated. Abuser type profile, and that's going to mean punching, throwing, breaking, slamming, demonstrative type of behaviors, the roaring lion ready to attack. So this is the C. This is the consequence of the imprint, which is A, which caused the belief system, which is now causing the C, the consequence. What else do we have here? Remember we had, with parental neglect, what else do we have? We had addictions. And there you go. Drug abuse, 125. Work, religion, both of them elevated or red. Fear of failure, that goes along with the narcissism. Narcissism, everybody thinks that the narcissist thinks I am great, but actually what the narcissist is trying to do is gain greatness from other people by overexerting themselves. So it's not I am great, it's am I great? And they need people to continue to, they need the mirror. The mirror has to continue to tell them that they're great. If they're not looking in the mirror, they doubt whether or not they're great. And what happens? The fear of failure comes up. And this whole process breeds shame issues. So normally the method of counseling would be to go after, put them in a 12-step program. Let's get rid of the drug abuse. Let's get rid of the consequence. But my neuro-linguistic programming background would say this is useful. It sounds really bad, but the consequence is a useful tool for what else is behind here. What you need to go after is rectifying the parental neglect and the feelings of parental neglect and undo that belief structure. The CBT assessment is essential at this point, and I did not pull that one up, and it would unmask the person's name. I'm not going to pull that up here now. But that shows a significant amount of cognitive distortion. So that's causing the elevation here. The troubles, and also the QuikTest score, anxiety was elevated. We saw that. Anxiety was elevated above what it should be. Not uncommon whatsoever. Those are all C's, the consequences. So I'm going to end it here, and we may do more on this. Well, I am going to do more on this later when I tie it all together over in the summary section sometime in the near future. Hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it.